Hey, I'm Grant, and welcome to the State of the Channel for June 5th. So, weekly update is going to be this Wednesday is going to be Dead Rising Chop to You Drop, and then this Friday is going to be the second test episode for the Digression Bar, my new podcast. And from here, I want to kind of take a different direction. This is actually going to be a longer State of the Channel, because there's a couple of things I want to talk over. So, definitely had this idea where when I think of my channel, when I think of my brand, I consider that I have certain pillars. And so I think of, they would normally be stuff like the State of the Channel. This is one where it comes out every single week, it's consistent, and it's just really there for interaction. And it came from, I felt, a very pure space where there's plenty of channels I've seen where I'll go watch a ton of their stuff, I discovered them, and then I realized, oh, they stopped producing content a month ago. It's like, well, are they on a different channel? Did they make some new product? Where are they? What are they doing? And it was just something I knew as a viewer I wanted to be fairly transparent. And as I go forward, I would actually love to say the channel to be even more involved, so I could show stuff like, here's my current setup, or look, do you guys want A or B? But that hasn't yet fully realized. So the other one would be what I'm hoping to develop right now is the podcast. And that's something that's works. I don't want to talk too much about it until we kind of work out the whole tests, but that will be coming out consistently every Friday now, because again, I want this to be a pillar. I want this to be something the channel is known for. I think of them as, I need like 3 ones. I think of them literally as Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And what this used to be would be Monday was Stay the Channel, Wednesday was a video like Chop to Drop, and then Friday was meant to be a stream. But ultimately, the streaming was there for interaction, so I felt like Stay the Channel kind of took that over. And I didn't like how streaming is this like juggernaut that just absorbs all your time. So in my mind, I feel like there's this gap where I need a pillar, and it's the most important pillar. And I'm going to take an aside and talk about another little short-term goal I have, which is I want to make a channel trailer. This is something that every single YouTube guide out there will tell you you need a channel trailer. And in fact, I go to a new YouTube channel, it's the thing I look for, because it's like, it answers a very important question, and that is, what is the channel about? Very simple question, not a simple answer. And this has come up a lot for me, is every time I mention someone like, oh, what are you going to do this week? It's like, oh, I have a YouTube channel. That's the first question, is what is it about? And I don't know if I necessarily have an answer. Like, if I would be completely objective, look at my channel right now, it's like, oh, it's a Dead Rising channel that has a couple other random videos. Like, that definitely feels like what I have built. But that's not consistent with what I actually thought of it in my head. Like, I plan to do a video eventually on what the history of the channel is, but if you read my description, I believe it says something about, I built it essentially as a way to almost have an excuse to do all these fun little projects that I would be doing anyway, and having this channel justifies them and makes it almost better. Stuff like, yeah, all the podcast, the Digression Bar is we're sitting on a couch talking to each other. But if you've never done it, something about the fact that we are formally, like, we're going for an hour, we are going to prepare topics, we're going to be on, like, essentially. There's something about that just makes it more fun than it really should be. Something about that added element just makes it amazing. And that's what I wanted to do more of, as well as I wanted it to be a vehicle to just have new experiences. And that's a very broad range of things. Like, it ranges just from stuff like Dead Rising Chop to You Drop. This is the game where I always heard about it on the wiki. You know, 1 or 2 people would mention occasionally on some forum, but what is it? It's weird. And ultimately, it's what, $10 on Amazon? But I would never have done it and gone out and played this really weird little game if it wasn't for the channel. But then this also extends to stuff like, I put out that cooking video. That's something where I enjoy cooking, and it's something I love to try new recipes. Like, I have like a queue of stuff I want to try. Like, I saw a great burger recipe from Binging with Babish that I want to try, but I need a food processor for it, but it looks delicious. And that's the same thing. I want to have these experiences of learning to cook these things. And particularly the reason I want to do that on the channel is the channel has a certain amount of community that can come of it as well. Like, I would love, like, way off in the distant future, to be able to go to, like, VidCon or PAX or something like that and actually meet people I've come into contact with from the channel. Or just, I know there's been people that I've played with online, like on Xbox and stuff, just because I met them somewhere just through the channel. So then I want to talk a little bit about how do we get from where I am now to where I want to be. And I think I kind of know the answer to that. And that also solves my question of what is your channel about? Is I know just as a viewer of other things on YouTube and before that even, is what was very common with just like the personalities I follow or the channels I like or things like that, there was always some kind of main pillar that was the focus of whatever they were doing. I think of like, I watched a ton of like Red versus Blue growing up. I have the whole box set. Great. And even though now and for years, that wasn't the majority of content I produced, that was the draw. That was their pillar. Or I remember the other one I usually go to is this old D&D animated show called Unforgotten Realms, where it wasn't even that good of a show. It just had a bunch of like really nice little quips that came out of it, and me and my friends watched it, but that was the pillar. And I feel like that's something my series have lacked, is I'm very inconsistent. And I think that's something that has really hurt the channel's growth, because I'll make series that are very good. I look at stuff like, even though it was really early on and I didn't have a lot of the same skills I have today, the original Dead Rising 1 Master Run, which was this idea of a mix between a speed run-esque thing where I just show off all these fancy tips, point out like really interesting story elements, showcase the game, and a Let's Play where it's still fun and like let me talk about my experiences. It's supposed to be a mix of that. And it's something I spent a lot of time on. But you look at that, and that has a surprisingly good interaction rate. People will go and comment. They'll be like, thanks for making this. You helped me with this Adam the Clown fight. You saved me hours of time. And that is definitely a series that has driven a large number of the subscribers for the channel in the past. But then you look at other stuff I produce, like stuff like even the podcast, the Digression Bar. Is there crossover between those series? Or even, let's say, some of the crazier stuff I did early on. Like I did a bunch of just random, like, let's say the Brotherhood of the Buzz, which I don't think is actually up on the channel. It was a Dark Souls 2 drinking game, and it was almost had this fun little format about it where essentially me and a friend would play Dark Souls. It was a drinking game, but we went all out. So we had like the Estus Flask, which is like your healing potion in the game, and I got an actual giant pitcher that looked like the Estus Flask. We made an orange juice-based drink. Really fun. And then we did this whole thing where we would write out challenges, and when it was your turn to play a level, you had to draw a challenge card, and it would range from stuff like you need to go up and poke a monster before you can kill it, or you need to share a controller. Really fun. But I view that as inconsistent. Like, if you came for Dead Rising 1, and that's what you're wanting for, is this kind of like Let's Play, but also learning a lot about the game, like more like what I enjoy, like speedruns, like going to watch awesome games done quick, because I always liked how it's like, oh, this is the story behind this game, here's the background, here's cool tips, here's fun stories. If you're going for all of that, Brotherhood of the Buzzed really didn't have much crossover. Like, maybe you watched both, but really it, I think, kind of just split the channel. And then I look even more where now I'll have some of my best videos on the channel are the ones I made about old school RuneScape or OSRS. Because, man, I remember I came home over lunch one day and I made a video in like 30 minutes, and by the time I got back to work, it was like at 4,000 views. And just the sheer like time to produce that content to the number of people who saw it, clearly I should make a channel about that. But even again, it's like, how many people that came to watch Dead Rising 1 are then also watching this? And individually, they're all good series, but there's no crossover. There's no one pillar that drives the channel. There's nothing that this points like this channel is about. And I don't really have an answer for you on this one, sadly. It's just something that's been ruminating in my mind over essentially a year. But that's my big goal for 2017, is to answer this question: what is the channel about? And what is my pillar? So a couple ideas about how I want to take that is, I've been working on live action stuff for a while. That's basically what the podcast is becoming. And this started way back, I think easily a year ago at least, where I made this kind of test podcast game show thing called Diversion. And we'll talk about it on the podcast if you listen to that. But it never put out because it was terrible quality. We filmed it with a mix between like a really old webcam on one laptop, a new webcam on another laptop, and someone's phone taped to a stick. and terrible. But it got me started on the path that eventually led to us filming D&D. And then through many critical errors, I got better and better. And that eventually became the podcast. And that was something like I felt that actually was the reason I made the State of the Channel, where it's like, man, I'm spending all this time producing these live action stuff, but I'm not putting any of it out. So I wanted to make State of the Channel show like, hey, I'm still working on stuff. The reason I bring up live action is I feel like that might be the way to go, and I'm doing a fair amount of research in my free time when I can on looking into something like that, or just a very narrative series. It doesn't necessarily have to be live action, but something that is just entirely produced by me. Because I always felt that, while not to disparage like any Let's Play channels, I always felt that for me personally, having to rely on having the game there for prompts or to force me to react to stuff if you're into scary games, stuff like that, I always felt that was a crutch. Like that was saying like my performance can't stand without essentially this game playing the other person. Like if you're familiar with like a comedy routine, like the game essentially would play like the straight man, like the serious guy, and then you'd be the silly one. That's a very classic comedy duo. And I think that's a very easy trap to fall into. That's really what I think of it, because it's very easy to produce Let's Plays. And I'm not saying that's if you have a Let's Play channel, that's fine. It's just, I think most people recognize the difference between a produced Let's Play and the guy who just recorded himself in front of it, not really reacting or saying anything. Like there's a definite level of quality there. So I wish I had an answer, but it's something I want to keep trying. Is I want to make something very just narrative, like this is what my channel is about. And I don't know what that would take. Like this, for all I know, maybe I'll decide that, you know what, the best thing is I should become a vlog channel. Who knows? It's not something I particularly like the idea of, because it almost seems like I never understood how you would start a vlog channel, because it seems like there's a certain level of how much work you have to do to actually produce your content, and then also having time to do interesting things to talk about on the vlog, and they clash. Like once you're big and you can hire an editor, it's great. Hey, here's all the camera footage I took today. Just splice it together and put my soundtrack over it. Like that's easy then. But I think that's something, like I said, my goal for 2017 is to answer that question. Is what is my channel about? What is this pillar series that is 90% of the channel? Or even if it's not the biggest thing on the channel, it's what draws people. And I have a couple ideas, and in the short term, what I'm focusing on is I want to get that podcast coming every Friday. Right now, that's my goal for essentially this month, is one podcast per week, every Friday, comes out, and it is fully produced. So that what that means is, like, obviously I could just, slap all the recordings together and throw it up, and it's something. But I need to get to the point where it's all fully produced every Friday, and I can consistently hold myself to that schedule. After that, I'm hoping to use the time in between to, like I said, just sit down and spend time, honestly, just brainstorming what I want to do or what best exemplifies this. So I know this is very open-ended and it's kind of a rambling little video I just had, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, because it's definitely, it helps. Like I love trying to interact with new people just out on, say, like Reddit and stuff, and I'll just always ask them a question like, hey, I'm not looking for you to subscribe. Just tell me first impressions, what you think, because that is always some of the most helpful info that is hard to capture. So that, I can't say how much that helps, is just any kind of feedback you guys can have. And surprisingly, like some of the more fun videos I've been able to do is just because someone randomly commented in a stream like, hey, you should make a video on that. It's like, oh, that's a really good idea, actually. So ultimately what I wanted to do with this video, with my goal, my goal for this video was just, I wanted to kind of like throw this idea out there, because that's kind of what the State of the Channel is meant to be, is what am I working on? And this is something where I identify that this is something that has hindered the channel's growth and has made it where I want to make sure I'm working on the actual goals I want to achieve with the channel. I want it to be something that, looking back when I'm 70, I say like, man, yeah, that was one of the defining things of my life, is this channel let me have all these amazing experiences. So as always, you can follow me over on Twitter, and I'll see you guys next week.